What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Modern Day Sniper Podcast. I know it's been a while. Phil and Caylen are back with you. And for those of you guys who are first visitors to the Modern Day Sniper Podcast, welcome. And just to give you an idea of what we're all about at the Modern Day Sniper Podcast, the Modern Day Sniper Podcast is all about the journey of the rifleman. Whether you are a professional shooter, an enthusiast, a hunter, or a seasoned competitor, you guys are the same as us. We are students of the craft, and this is the place where you can come to find that kind of information to help you on your path to becoming the rifleman that you want to be. So without further ado, Philip, man, I'm glad that we are able to get back together on the podcast.
Sorry, I'm making a social post right now. But yeah, it's good to be back. What's up, everybody? Thanks for all the wellness checks, guys. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I'm alive and healthy.
I was going to say, man, everybody's like, where's Phil? Nice post, but where's Phil?
Yeah.
What'd you do with them? Seriously, dude, I'm glad to do this. We've been having so much going on lately. It's kind of mind blowing, which is a good thing. It's awesome. We've got all kinds of new stuff coming for you guys in 2021. It's just been one of those situations where when you take a step back and you look at what happened over the course of the last year, you just go, whoa, man, that was a lot. And it was a lot. You know, we have made tremendous amount of progress in a very short amount of time, and we have nobody to thank for that, but all you guys that are listeners on the podcast. It really blows me away, and I'm super humbled by the support and the viewership and listenership. It's pretty insane. So thanks, guys. Really.
Yeah, man, it's been we started the podcast last year in January. I think, was it before SHOT Show or after SHOT Show? It was around the time of SHOT Show.
We released our first episode, I want to say it was the 23rd or 24th of January, is the Wednesday of SHOT Show.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So coming up on our full year, you know, we've got 37, this is episode 37, and we're close to 250,000 downloads, which is awesome. Nowhere near Frank's level, because obviously Frank's got an awesome following in the community, but still I didn't think that we would get as big as we did. And again, it's thanks to you guys that are listening in. Thanks for keeping us honest and asking us, hey, where's the podcast? We enjoy doing these things. You know, I enjoy being able to, obviously jump on the hook with Caylen. I mean, even there's times that you and I jump on a phone call for about an hour and a half. Like, man, this should have been a podcast, right?
Yeah, all the time.
Catching up with for work or brainstorming ideas with what you and I have got going on. Yeah, dude, I'm excited for
that's what makes us fun.
Oh yeah.
That's what makes us fun, is that, there are a lot of people out there that are just like, you know what, man, the stress of the entrepreneurship stuff is too much. And for people that might have done it and they're like, you know what, dude, that's just not the way I want to live my life. Hey, that's cool. But I love being able to set your own intentions every day. You set your intention every day and you say, okay, well, today we're going to accomplish this, or this week we're going to accomplish this. And we have the ability to truly identify what's possible and continue to redefine for ourselves what's possible when it comes to growing this thing. And last year was just like mind blowing when it came to how much we freaking learned in a year. It was pretty insane. All from even the shooting side, but then the technology side of getting into the digital age with Modern Day Sniper. It's been fun.
I think, there's a lot of uncertainty right now going on in the world that I haven't really not really understood. Obviously, it's like it's there, right? And people bring it up that ask me if I'm following along, but honestly, I haven't been paying. Not that I haven't been paying attention, but it's not easily available for reasons that we'll talk about here shortly. But yeah, and even last year, I know with the uncertainty of traveling and stuff like that, we were still be able to make it work. And I think with the introduction of online training, the modern day sniper schoolhouse, and you kind of leading the way with that, you leading a charge for the first 2 courses that you launched by yourself, with Brian's help and Cass's help. Hopefully, that again, Evan from Collis brought up a great point. There's no one else in the industry doing it, and that a lot of the information that you find online for long range shooting are all still in forums. You know what I mean? Guys just sharing.
Yeah.
I would say your FUDs, right? Or is it boomers? Is it
Yeah,
the FUDs or boomers? Are we a boomer? How
yeah,
does that work?
no, we're not boomers. Not at all. Um, the You're right, and it's when we did this, we wanted to make sure that it was something that was of the highest quality, right? So there's a lot of conversation out there. Well, we only want to put out like the information is what's important. The presentation, whatever the presentation ends up being, it's like, nah, man, if we've got quality information, we also have to have a really high quality presentation. And that's really what we wanted to focus on. And we didn't want to put anything out there that was not anything like that. And, Cassandra studying the digital space and the digital marketing, like that is truly what has helped set us apart also, because she came at it. And I mean, honestly, we get people calling us all the time. Like, dude, who did your website? Who did your website? Cass did our website, and she just has the eye, she has the look, and she knows based upon, it's really cool because she's vested in it. Cause she's like, man, this is my baby. I want this to look a certain way. And she's relentless in that pursuit. And, Cass got the nickname of the company Gunny. So, she's basically our ops chief.
Yeah, man, it's been exciting growth, and I'm just really looking forward to 2021 and seeing, what we can do in 12 months together versus the 5 that we had together last year.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Well, we already got a pretty damn good roadmap. If I don't say so myself. And before, I don't want to get into too many plugs, but dude, I'm really getting excited about this subscription service thing, man. It's, the platform that we're going to host it on is pretty gnarly. It's pretty cool. And so I hope you guys that are listeners, that might be tired of the whole Facebook thing. I know I sure as fuck am tired of the whole Facebook thing. And, this interface, this community is very, very similar in that regard, but it's privately owned, and, it's 2A friendly. So that for us is really, really awesome. And, yeah, it's going to be a really cool place for people to come, and kind of like the Facebook, or like our alumni group that you set up. So it'll be something similar to that.
I think with the subscription service, it's going to help a lot of people that are right now with uncertainty of ammo, right? That are, typical competitors that are probably reserving anywhere from 400 rounds a month or 200 rounds a month, doing one match a month and stuff like that. I think the goal of the subscription service is not only to obviously continue with your education, but to also, if you're an experienced rifleman, to maintain that edge of being a rifleman. You know what I mean? And even to this day, I probably haven't shot more than, I'd say, 200 rounds in the last 30 days.
Yeah.
And the only reason why it's even close to 200 is because I'm trying to fire for them. So I really want to like get done with brass, right? But I think now with ammo shortages and stuff like that, I don't think people are gonna be traveling to, and this is just my opinion, right? I don't think people are gonna be traveling to these 2-day national level matches, and I think hopefully, obviously the subscription service takes off, and it gives these guys the ability to, okay, hey, here's a training plan that is a low round count, right? But it is structured in a way that is going to keep my skills sharp as a rifleman, so that, in 6 months later down the line, when, hopefully primers are back in stock, powders back in stock, and all that stuff, guys are going to be able to hopefully go to a match and still maintain that same edge they were 6 months ago.
Well, for those of you guys out there, I've been getting hit up a lot too, and that brings up a good point with like the ammunition availability part today. This is not the first time this has happened. It won't be the last time it's happened. And when I worked at Magpul, I was able to see a lot of these trends within the community or within our industry, and it's firearms industry wide. The political situation drives the marketplace, and it sucks that that's the way it is, but it is the way it is, and it will eventually come back. I wouldn't say it'll even itself out because it doesn't usually stay even for very long, and then it's either on a rise or a fall. So we witnessed a lot of this stuff working at Magpul because obviously Magpul's very, very totally focused on sales. And so when it comes to this availability stuff, it will come back. Don't freak out. And for those of you guys that have been hitting me up that are like, oh man, you got 1,000 rounds of 9mm ammo, you don't want to sell me? No, the answer is absolutely not. So learn your mistakes and prepare next time ammunition becomes available, right? So primers suck right now. Primers, it's a huge bummer to try to find primers. And I'm looking at my stock and I'm saying, okay, well, I'm good, but there's a lot of things that we can do to maintain our level of proficiency that do not involve dry fire. And that's part of what the subscription service is going to bring to you.
Yeah, so subscription service we have planning on launching, and then another thing that we wanted to, I think, housekeeping stuff. We have potentially 288 to plus or minus 50 slots that have already been taken.
Yep.
For you guys to train with us in person. So we've kind of soft launched our online training or our in-person training calendar. I know Cast or Gunny's working on creating products and stuff like that. But if you guys are listening to this, check that out on our website. All the links are going to be in our podcast bio, guys. So if you want to come out to shoot with us in person and get hands-on, that's the best way. Or if not, see us at a match and or just resort to online training. But I would say that that's probably going to grow maybe 1 or 2 plus more classes because we're already pretty spread thin for this year.
Yeah, I kind of try to like to leave the fall open, obviously for hunting season because it's part of what we do, but at the same time for classes that just people are like, hey man, last minute, can you come out and do this? And we want to make sure that there's room in there for that. We got some really cool new venues, guys, that are coming up. We got some really cool new opportunities coming up that I think are going to resonate with y'all very well. I'm excited to bring it forward. So, I guess not too much on the housekeeping side, right? I mean, everybody, we're working on the subscription service. That the subscription service is really, really going to be rad. I'm super excited about it. But outside of that, I've been shooting some matches. I shot a local match out at Rock Lake. Had a great time with some dudes that I haven't seen in a long time. I'm shooting another one I'm shooting 2 this weekend. I'm going to shoot Sun Targets here in Yakima, and then the one that you and I shot together. And then I'm also going to, I just found out about another one. If you guys are up in the Pacific Northwest and you haven't heard about this venue, it's called the Lead Farm. It's out in Prosser. And I just happened to find out about it from some of the dudes that I was shooting with at Rock Lake. They were like, hey dude, you going to be at the Lead Farm match? I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, oh, it's by Prosser. And I'm thinking to myself, are they thinking about Rattlesnake Hills? No, it's another venue, and it's another place to hold matches. So basically now, what I know for sure, there are at least monthly club matches happening in 3 locations a month in Washington State. So I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, especially if I know that we have a lot of enthusiasts that are listening to this and stuff like that, or even hunters that are not really in the competition world. But yeah, I'd definitely go out to those. That's your first step in the door, and that's one thing. Actually, I'm working on a blog right now is how to get into precision rifle shooting, competition precision rifle shooting, and I'm always a big advocate of the starting at the local level, finding a mentor, learning from those guys, because typically there's a few national level shooters that are shooting the club level matches, right? And they are always more than willing to help a new shooter out. You just have to, closed mouths don't get fed, right? And you have to take the
Yep.
leap of faith to, show up. And there's no such thing as being prepared for your first match. That's an absolute myth. Like, I hate when, I try to invite a guy out, especially like another sniper. I'm like, hey, come out to this local match. They're like, oh man, I'm not ready. I'm just going to show my ass. I'm like, bro, you can train straight up in your own like idea of what you think that you're going to prepare for a match with. You're going to show up and you're still going to fucking eat shit. So the best way to do it is just
You
to
know,
show up and learn that way.
yeah, and what do we say about expectations, right? When you have expectations, that is the prime ingredient for failure. Okay, so you you have to come at that with a different point of view mentally. And that's another thing that I'm excited about with the subscription service is that we're going to be having these talks in the subscription service every month, right? So we're going to be talking about some sort of a mindfulness or personal growth and development topic. And that's huge because that's been very, very impactful in my life. And it has greatly changed the way that I view myself in the competition space. And it's helped me unlock a bunch of new potential that I'm really excited about releasing this year. Like I'm shifted the way that I'm looking at the competition scene. And so I'm excited to put it to the test.
I want to talk about your match real quick because you got second, right? That's pretty awesome because you don't compete as much as I do, right? You're not at the what's what I'm looking for. You're not as actively trying to compete as I am, right? And for you to show up, and I know those guys because I see them every month, right? Same crew, fucking showing up and getting top 5 to show up and oh man, Caylen has been here the last 6 months and get second place. That's pretty awesome.
We,
Behind
we,
Nick Godarzian, he's a phenomenal shooter.
Nick, I enjoy being around Nick because he's very mellow. He's extraordinarily smooth and methodical, and I need to take. He actually, I think he was kind of busting my balls a little bit. He was saying, "Oh, this is one of the greatest, instructors in the nation right here," and I was like, "Dude, get out of here, man! You're also one of the best shooters in the nation, and you've proven that very, very consistently." And so when I watch Nick shoot, he's very, very slow, very methodical. His body does not move fast, and that's because his brain is moving at a tick with his body.
Yep.
And so I need to apply more of that in my shooting style. And Corson was in a different squad. He's always been a solid shooter ever since I started shooting in the circuit here up in the Pacific Northwest. And Mr. Jake Millard, Jake is a super consistent shooter, and he's just young, and it's going to be amazing to see where Jake goes, and where his journey takes him in the coming years.
What are some of I guess individual takeaways from the match? Like what were a couple of your strengths that when you at the end of the day you're like, hey, I really did well on this, and what are a couple of things you stumbled upon?
So the first thing was, I'm starting to move to a position of being very aware of where my mental headspace is prior to even showing up. And we've talked about this before in some podcasts when it comes to, how our presence is viewed in the competitive circuit and being able to maintain relevance by continuing to put your money where your mouth is. That's a big deal. And so that if that is unchecked, that can mess with your brain. That can mess with your ego, and that can mess with your emotions. And so, this one, I wanted to make sure that like I trained pretty much like every day. I shot probably 50 rounds a day. capturing content, number one, and being able to train and capture content at the same time. So I felt really, really comfortable. I was shooting the new American Rifle Company CeeLo chassis, and that thing is fire. It's really, really just, it's very comfortable. And it doesn't act like a tuning fork, I guess. More on that later. We'll do more on the CeeLo coming up. But the first stage was a mover stage, and I dropped like 3 shots on it, and I didn't allow it to mess with my brain, right? It was just like, that was easy. It was a 400-yard mover. I think it was a Coyote. So I was over the top of the target. I was anticipating the shot, right? So able to just to stop and focus on what I did correctly instead of focusing on the negative aspect of it.
Yeah.
And so went to the next one, and the next one I was like, hey, you moved too fast on stage 1. Just mellow out. Okay. These are generous stage times. And then, but the second stage I timed out, and I went 6 for 6, and then I was ready to drop the hammer on shot number 7. And they were like, nope, you're done. I was like, oh, damn you. So, but then I shot pretty much the rest of the day clean. I think I dropped 2 shots for the rest of the day. And the conditions were kind of, well, typical January conditions up here, right? It's just 40 degrees, rain. And by the end of the day, it was 20 mile an hour, damn near full value winds. And so good confidence booster, to be able to go out and shoot and hit first round impacts on some smaller target sizes for everybody all and around. A lot of the guys in the squad were like, man, dude, this is fucking badass. We're crushing targets, and, the wind's howling. And Doug's place is great. It's great to shoot because the winds do little funky things coming around all those little micro canyons through that wheat country out there. So it's a good place to shoot. And the strengths, I think, were the positional stuff and wind calls. And I was shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor, just straight up factory ammo. So I don't think that anything related to the cartridge, my ability to manage recoil, spot my own trace, was affected in any way, shape, or form, or meaning that I could attribute any of my misses or missed shot splashes as a result of the 6.5 Creedmoor with or factory ammo. There was none of that. Like, my misses still would have been misses if I had a 25-pound rifle, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
So it's CeeLo?
The CeeLo.
CeeLo. But it's, if you look at it in text-wise, it's Xylo.
XYLO.
Xylo. I just wanted to hear you say that one more time. CeeLo.
Yeah, Chaz. The CeeLo. Uh-huh.
No, that's awesome, man. No, I think those are good debrief points. I like that you talked about mental headspace, getting into the mental headspace, and not letting it affect you. Because I'm super guilty of a mover stage. I clean the fuck out of some movers, right? And when I do a mover stage, and if I don't clean it, oh my god, it wrecks me the rest of the day. And that's all I'm thinking about is like beating myself up, like, oh, you shouldn't have dropped those 3 shots on that mover. All the other pros are fucking cleaning it, and I'm like, freaking, and that's where I start to unwind. Right, because I'm not able to maintain that mental headspace that I need to. I'm focusing on that negative aspect when I should be focusing on, hey, this is what I did correctly to get those 7 shots off and hit them. Not, hey, this is what you did wrong, so unfuck yourself.
Sure. The other part of this too is, and this is, we're going to start talking about this more and more because the learning that I've experienced in terms of the psychology aspect of things and just scratching the surface of the stuff that Cassandra is talking about and working on and studying, it is profound. I mean, it is very, very profound, and it has a almost an immediate effect once you put it into practice. And one of those things is non-attachment, not being attached to the outcome. And I made a post a while back to just kind of as a litmus test to see what people would say. And I said, I want to talk about things like attachments, attachments to the outcomes. That is like that's a huge recipe for failure or a huge ingredient into the recipe for failure by having an attachment to the outcome. Because once you do that, then you're looking at it through a different lens. And so I'm not going to go too much deeper into that because I don't want to like take away from the other stuff that I want to talk about in the future. But these are things that we're going to have deep discussions on coming up.
Yeah.
And I was not attacked. Like, I was like, whatever, dude, I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to go have a good time. I'm going to learn something. I knew the wind was supposed to crank that afternoon. So, I was like, okay, let's go get some experience shooting in the wind in a different location. And that's really all I cared about. Didn't care about hits other than, hey, was my wind call good? Okay, cool. I smashed it. Let's press the trigger again. Smashed it. Let's press the trigger again. Moving on. Right. It's, I had no care nor desire to shoot under any set of expectations.
Yeah.
And it makes a tremendous difference in your psyche.
That's awesome. So that was 26 minutes of a kind of an introduction for, I guess, the main topic that we wanted to talk about, which is, I think right before we started, it was the Shooter's Journal.
Yep.
I mean, it's January. It's the first podcast of the year. New year, new me, all that stuff. And what I did, was invest into a shooter journal. And I wanted to kind of, I guess we just wanted to talk about that, right? And what it looks like, what I've documented so far, and maybe the guys that are listening in, especially you guys that are highly interested in getting the subscription service. We're gonna actually mandate that you have a shooter's journal so that you can track your progress, right, yourself.
Yep.
But yeah, so my shooter journal, and obviously we want to get fancy with this. Eventually, one day, have our own Modern Day Sniper branded journal. Well, the very first like few pages are all like shooter's checklist, some brief notes. So what I did to kind of mimic that was put on my first few pages kind of like basic fundamentals. You know what I mean? So I've got 3 factors of building a shooting position, 3 elements of a good shooting position, my 8 common factors, my 5 positional shooting. And you guys that have are students of ours, or maybe have on access to the fundamentals of marksmanship course, if you guys have access to that stuff, the more that you write it down, the more that you're able to commit that stuff to memory, the more that when you're actually shooting, you're able to essentially slow everything down and understand what you need to focus on when it comes to training. I always refer to my 8 common factors as diagnostic tools in terms of stability, recoil management, and comfort. Every time I manipulate, my hips in relation to the target, it's altering my comfort level, it's altering my stability factor, and it's also altering my ability to manage recoil, right? And I know that when I'm double checking my shooting position, or if I'm in a position that I feel like is unstable, the very first thing that I'm going to go through are my 8 common factors to see how I can change any part of my body position to help with that stability. You know what I mean? And I think, by writing it down at the very first part of your journal, or constantly writing it down, will help you commit that to memory. And then after the first 5 pages is my first, essentially, entry log. So I'll talk about mine real quick. And Caylen, I know you talked about yours. So for everyone, and I'm gonna dub this the Rifleman's list. Kind of stole it from a podcast I listened to, Andy Frisella. There's my due paid from Andy. For those that listen to Andy, that his due paid is to at least talk about the podcast. But he talks about a power list, right? A power list of getting 5 things done throughout the day. You know what I mean? So that you can essentially start building habits and stuff like that. Well, I wanted to do the same thing for shooters, right? So, hey, when you go to the range, write down 5 things you want to accomplish before you can start jacking off or do whatever, So the last time I went out to the range was actually with Peyton Grimes. This was down in Texas, filming for the first training session. And so I wrote, hey, the date, where I was shooting at, the altitude, in the case that I wanted to build a range card function at it, or next time I head out to the range, maybe for like a national level match or a monthly match. Wrote that I was training with Peyton and recording for the MDS Monthly. That was kind of my taskings there, or the overall goal. And then what I was shooting, which is my 6 BRA, and shooting 108 fire formed loads. And so my 5 Rifleman's lists was associated with the round count, so that when I'm preparing to go to the range, I know, hey, I need at least 90 rounds to accomplish my training tasks, right? So the very first one was the MDS Sniper Side 21 dot drill, which is kind of like a modern day sniper modified from Frank and Jacobs, which consists of 22 rounds. Immediately following task number 2 would be the KRAFT challenge. 3 was validate trajectory out to 1,000 yards. That's 20 rounds. The KRAFT challenge is 12 rounds. And then the PRS barricade I want to run at least twice, and that required 16 rounds. And then do a multiple target positional, so which is task 5, and I allotted 20 rounds for that, for a total of 90 rounds. So after I accomplished all 5 of those tasks, then I could do whatever I wanted. I knew that I got training value out of those 5 things. And then I debriefed, I wrote down little debrief points for each drill or each task. So sniper side drill, I got 17 out of 20. I timed out on my support side. So now I'm essentially just creating a journal. Hey, how am I shooting progress? And maybe, I don't know, 5 or 6 months down the line, I can go back to, hey, December 22, I was getting 17 out of 20. Now, 6 months later, I'm cleaning the 21 dot drill.
Yep.
And it allows me to, ensure that I'm doing something. Now, with the Rifleman's list, one thing to keep in mind is stuff like natural point of aim, follow through, trigger control. Those are all implied unless I make it a specific task.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, it's all the same. We want to be fundamentally sound.
Exactly.
Right. So,
but if you need to work on, let's say, if you need to work on natural point of aim, you could write down 1 natural point of aim, let's say 10 rounds, but your sole focus, and I would say do it in the prone. So the only thing that you're doing, so natural point of aim prone, is focusing on your natural point of aim for those 10 shots. Not your trigger control, not your breathing, focusing on getting a good natural point of aim for 10 shots. And then you can do natural point of aim standing, do the same thing, right? And maybe that's your task 1 and task 2. Or maybe it's all 5, natural point of aim for standing, kneeling, sitting, prone.
Yeah, and something to remember, guys, is that you don't have to have these big friggin' marathon shooting sessions.
Nope.
Less is more. Less is more. And if you do, we call it our consistency check drill, where we're breaking our position after every shot. That has so much benefit, even if you do it only for 10 shots. But if you make sure that every single one of those 10 shots is released with a perfect, beautiful, natural point of aim, you are wiring your brain for success. It doesn't matter how much time it takes. What matters is that you get the quality of the repetition and you build the neural pathways the way that they need to be built. So don't think that you got to go out there and shoot, just crush it with the round count, because that might eventually come later, depending on where you want to take your skills. But that's just my little injecture there when it comes to, a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's only like 5 shots, man, 10 shots. No, well, you make those 5-10 shots count. You make them an integral part to your training session.
Yeah. So I think it was like a few months ago, I was working on a tripod deployment. That was like my only task for the range, was learning how to deploy, or working on my efficiency of deploying my tripod in the kneeling position. I shot 20 rounds and it took me 90 minutes because, I was working, hey, this is the height that I want to be at. This is how I'm going to be carrying my tripod, right? All these things. And that's probably one of the less, I think, setting up your shooting position from, what would you call it? Breakout drills.
Breakout
like
drills.
a breakout drill. And so that when I think of breakout drills, I think of like immediate action, right? Like breaking
Yeah,
contact.
for sure. Well, yeah, it's just like, oh shit, we gotta set up shooting position right now.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen.
So the breakout drill is, especially for a hunter, is, hey, you got all your gear on, then obviously you see a target of opportunity. Now you got to figure out how to take your shot. Same thing with a military law enforcement sniper. You know what I mean? It's like, or even a law enforcement sniper. Hey, you just got a call, right? And let's say that all your gear's in your truck. You've got everything kind of, your kit or your backpack with your rifle. How are you going to grab all that and then move? So thinking about how all your gear is stowed is super important, right? So that you're not essentially a fucking gypsy heading to your firing position.
Yep.
So yeah,
That's and it doesn't take much. That's a very valuable training day right there. That's a tremendously valuable training day, because then the next time you arrive at that position or situation, it's just like you're running on autopilot, and that's the goal. So, and you need to incorporate that stuff. That's basic mechanics stuff, right? A lot of people get a piece of gear and they're like, this is a badass widget. You see my new toy? But they'll literally never do anything with it to practice how to like set it up. Or it's like watching people with their tripods. It's like, dude, how long have you had that thing? Well, then why are you still friggin' screwing with the leg locks? Like, come on, man. We should have already had this stuff figured out a long time ago.
yeah.
But I think that the journal stuff is a really good idea. This year I've made it a point to daily journal for myself. So I kind of incorporated my shooting journal into my daily journal, because I try to write in my journal every day. I don't always make that happen. But because I have this in my hands every day, I wanted to make sure that this is what I built the shooting journal out of. And I wanted to like figure out if this was going to work for me before we like made one. Right. So try to test out what the process is. And so some of the stuff I got from, if you guys haven't read the book called Winning in Mind, I would highly encourage you to do so. It's written by a very, very well accomplished Olympic shooting champion, multiple gold medals, and now is a high performance, basically sports coach, talking about the mental process of sports psychology and trying to figure out the most efficient way to get the brain to function where it needs to in that environment. And so some of the stuff is, very, very similar. I got a day planner. I got another day planner over here because this stuff has intrigued my mind. This planner is from a company called Best Self. Self Journal. This is actually really effective. This is a daily journal, productivity journal. I like to write things down. That helps me close the loop on my learning process. And so I looked at that, and they have the pages broken down to like every day. Not just a typical day planner. It's got a lot of goal focused questions in there to get you engaged, to get your mind engaged with the process of identifying a goal, and then identifying the steps that it takes to reach that goal. And so what I did here in mine is I put a monthly training goal for the month of January. And then for that month, I wanted to be in the top 5% of all the local regional matches that I'm shooting, if not winning them. You have to be able to bring things. You have to be able to bring things in. If you ask for it, you will receive it. That's the power of manifestation. More on the mindfulness stuff that we're going to get deeper into. I also throw in here for the monthly goal of January is to get my mechanics not nailed down with the CeeLo chassis, because it's a new piece of gear. We're going to do a review on it. It's going to end up on the YouTube channel, but I really wanted to make sure that I could get familiar with that new chassis and learn all of its ins and outs. And I also wanted to be shooting 1.5 MOA PRS barricade drills in under 90 seconds, cleaning them. All right, so that's the goal that I'm working towards. And then a start of the month eval, I did that this month with the KRAFT challenge, Chris Way's KRAFT challenge. Where are you at the beginning of the month? Okay, where are your skills at? in relationship. Now we've identified where your skill's at, and then we can say, how realistic is it for us to try to achieve this particular goal? And, this is a place where you can write down like, hey, I felt this way. This was kind of shaky, whatever. And then I broke it down into week goals: week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And then end of the month evaluation. How were you able to meet the goal of the month? And so if this can help hold you accountable, right? And then the daily training days is an entry of the date, the location, what are the conditions, and where's your headspace at? Meaning, what are you feeling like right now? Like usually my days, I do my admin stuff in the morning and I go out to the range and train and or capture in the afternoon this time of year because it's warmer in the afternoon. So the headspace check for me is really important because we all understand or should understand how the power of our mind plays in the outcome of our persona and our day. So how we react to things, how we react to certain situations and or conversations, or even our thoughts, right? We have 70,000 thoughts a day. And 90% of those 70,000 thoughts are thought of the same thoughts are thought of the next day. So you can get yourself into this super vicious cycle of just suck, right? And it can do that very easily. So I wanted to make sure that I held myself accountable and said, hey, where's my headspace this morning? Before I started training. And I think that's a huge goal for me, is just to make sure that I'm disciplined in writing that down every time. The day's training goal, like what am I accomplishing? Like you did on yours, Phil, like it's that, I'm going to do 1 through 5, right? And then the accomplishments of the day. Did I accomplish what I wanted to accomplish? And just list them out. Who cares if you actually made it done? Just list out what you did. Because you could have found something in your training that you're like, man, nah, I want to stay focused on this. This is a deficiency. I need to hang out here. And now maybe this goal that I wanted to achieve, that needs to get slid to the right some while I make sure that these mechanics over here are dialed in. Who cares? That's how we progress. And then at the very end, it's your solutions, right? What are you going to use to not necessarily focus on the problem, but look at how you're going to fix that problem. And that'll help you kind of like take a deeper dive mentally into the process. And each page has a round count, a dry fire rep count, and total time. So I'm going to keep going at this thing and see, and try to be as disciplined as I can with it and see how it pans out, and we'll come together and see what worked for each of us.
No, I think that's great. And it gives perspective for especially our listeners on just two different, styles of writing in their journal, right? And that's the point of why we wanted to talk about this podcast, because again, moving forward into 2021, tracking progression is important. And, especially for our, shooters that are going to be coming on to modern day Rifleman Monthly or modern day Sniper Monthly, lead by example, right? It's like, hey, if I'm going to expect these guys to have a journal, I need to have one too. And this is what mine's going to look like, because it's, for me, the cleanest information that I can keep possible. I'm excited to expand on the Rifleman's list, and hopefully, if guys are running out of training ideas, maybe I can just throw it up on social media and be like, hey, these are the 5, or these are different combinations of the Rifleman's list you can use for your next training session, right? Or even just learn from other shooters, right? It's like, hey, what's your 5 this week? And, I see a task on there that I'm not familiar with, and ask him like, oh, what are you working on there? Maybe he or she can, give me insight on, hey, this is what I think. And I know my list was a little comprehensive for probably the newer shooter, because, let's talk about the KRAFT challenge for a second. Even though
good one.
Basic that KRAFT challenge might sound, it's actually pretty. It's a great drill. And so for those that are unfamiliar with the KRAFT challenge, I don't even know if Chris wants to call it the KRAFT challenge. I think I just dubbed it that because it's just catchy. But it's because he says it's not really
We'll
a
help
challenge.
Chris out with marketing.
Yeah, it's more of like a gathering tests or gathering information. So Chris Way, also known as Gun Around the Sun on Instagram, he is a very interesting individual, super analytical, is a great guy. I actually listened to first time that actually turned me on to him was a podcast that he did with Travis Ishida on the Precision Rifle channel podcast. And that's what really actually turned me on to him. But very analytical, and I think he was starting essentially just series on getting ready for the Assassin's Way that he was going to compete in this year. But we all know that got pushed to the right to 2022. Frank and Jacob did a podcast on it on the Everyday Sniper podcast.
Yep.
That's where I heard it.
Yep.
And so he came up with this test on trying to figure out, everyone's baseline and how a shooter can struggle or figure out, hey, what are you struggling with? Because, especially as a rifleman, we all know that being on the bench and shooting your 25-pound rifle, you can be printing quarter-minute groups, right? But if I get you off your belly and you do this KRAFT challenge in the standing, kneeling, sitting, and prone, and you're shooting a fucking 4 MOA group, well, guess what? You're a 4 MOA shooter with a 4 MOA gun, essentially, right? So, anyways, what this KRAFT challenge is, I would say to figure out your individual baseline, you print out this target, and this target, it's a diamond, right, shaped format. And it goes from 1 inch all the way out to 8 inches. And the freaking shooting, and this is what I should have done with mine, is actually fill in the very first box, because that first aiming point is super small. And until you start shooting it, that's when I get actually my aim point. When I start building a shot hole.
You start building a rat hole in there.
But I should have done what you and David did when you and David both showed me your targets. I was like, man, why didn't I think about that? Anyways, so what you do is you shoot consecutively, standing, kneeling, sitting, prone. So that's 4 shots, and you're going to do 3 rounds of that for a total of 12 shots. Now, when you do this the first time, there's no time limit. You need to shoot every shot as accurately as you possibly think you can get that shot off based off your shooting position, right? So standing, kneeling, sitting, prone, in that order. Don't care what kind of prop you use. You can use tripods, you can use a fence post, whatever. I highly recommend that you use something that's stable. If you have a barricade that's wobbly, that's gonna, in my opinion, throw kind of another variable in your firing solution, because now you're shooting off of a wobbly barricade that's inducing mechanical wobble that you cannot control, right? Because now you're just focusing on timing your shot versus actually building your shooting position. Does that make sense? I think we talked about this before in the past about making sure that you're shooting off of something that's solid. But when you shoot those 4 rounds, what you're going to do is you're also going to time yourself for each round. So standing, kneeling, sitting, prone, that's 1 round. And let's say you did it in 2 minutes. Then you're going to run round 2, standing, kneeling, sitting, prone. Let's say you got that in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And then you run 3, and let's say that you shot that in, again, 2 minutes. So, you average a time of 2 minutes and let's say 15 seconds per run, right? And then you look down at your shot group and you realize that you printed 4 minutes out of the 12 shots. Now your baseline is, hey, I shoot 2 minutes and 15 seconds at 4 minutes of angle. Mm-hmm. Right? Is that a good way of looking at it?
Yep. That's perfect.
Starting with your individual baseline. So what's next?
Perfect.
What's the very first thing that should go? down? Should it be time or should it be group size?
Well, for me, I would look at it and say, okay, this is also a training tool that you can utilize to check yourself with regard to speed.
Yep.
Let's just say, like as an example, 1.5 MOA from a barricade. I could basically do that at 100 yards with 1.5 MOA pieces of paper, right? You know, I want to be able to shoot. I want to be able to clean a PRS barricade stage at 1.5 MOA targets in 90 seconds or less. Okay, so there's your benchmark. Now you could run that KRAFT drill and do the PRS barricade at 100 yards if you wanted to, and you want to eliminate the factor of wind. Can I break 8 clean shots and keep them inside a minute and a half of accuracy? And that can totally be done on paper at 100 yards. You don't have to have a piece of steel out there to do this, because what happens at 100 yards is exactly what's going to happen at distance, provided you have a good wind call. So that's really what that 100-yard drill, that's what that 100-yard purpose is for, is to make sure that you're keeping yourself in check fundamentally, and you're not introducing other factors that you don't know if they are actually a factor or not. Does that make sense?
Yep. That's, I mean, just like when we do our in training person classes, when we start positional shooting, you know, we have everyone shoot at paper first, right? Make sure that they can get their groups within a, 2 minute of angle, because when we start spotting for you, I want to know that you're missing because of wind environmentally, not because of, not fundamentally. And I think a lot of people don't realize it. And shooting at paper obviously is the most humbling thing that you could do. After talking to Chris about this, another thing that he's also realized that shooters don't realize as well is that there's sometimes an inherent point of aim, point of impact shift from their zero, and which you can see on your on your paper, right, downrange, because again, people, they typically, shooters in the sport of long range shooting use zero from 2 positions: off the bench or in the prone, and or maybe the bench, kind of like a modified prone where you're like leaning over, right? That's how I typically shoot off of a bench if I'm shooting off a bench, because I'm too lazy to get to the ground, is, lean over it. But a lot of times when shooters start shooting very quickly or in alternate shooting positions, there are point of aim, point of impact shifts. So actually what Chris says he does, which I think is smart, is that he actually zeros based off of this drill.
Yeah. I mean, that's totally smart.
Yeah. So
I mean, why not?
Yeah, because
what are the majority of your shots going to be? Where are the majority of your shots going to be taken? From positions.
Because Chris is a competitive shooter, right? He knows that he's going to be shooting from all these different various positions. Okay, so, but again, you don't. The drill isn't meant for just competitive shooting. The drill is meant for, I would say, any rifleman that is looking to just be more efficient with conditions that they might find in the field as a operational sniper or as a hunter. So yeah, I think this is a drill that I'd like to incorporate for our in-person classes, especially for our positional shooting.
Agreed.
You know what I mean? To just establish that baseline and figure out, hey, this is where you're at. And yeah, so I shot my first one. I shot it at like a minute, 1.37, and then my second one is like 1.5. I think you shot yours at a minute, didn't you? Like 1 minute of angle.
Yep, like 1.1 or something like that. Yeah. Then I shot it with a couple of hunting rifles too. The hunting rifles, the 6.5 Creedmoor hunting rifle, that didn't open up at all. Just some vertical stringing as a result of the lighter weight rifle. And then my seven SOM, that was interesting because the zero did shift. But I hadn't shot that gun in a while, and I looked at the group, and it was high and to the left by about a minute. And so I thought that was me. And then I shot a zero confirmation group. And it was like, oh, okay, well, the gun is, that's where it's zeroed right there where the big hole is. But then I threw 4 or 5 shots that strung low and to the right. And so that's there. I focused on those now that I knew what the zero was. It's like, okay, well, let's look at those. What happened there? And it's easy to get confused, man. It's easy to get confused until you got to confirm that zero. We need to have that zero control group to say, okay, is this point of impact shift a result of me, or is it that's where the gun happens to shoot? And once you do that, then you're like, oh, okay, now I can go into the diagnostics of why is my group there and not in the center of the target.
Yep. Yeah. And I'd highly recommend, if you can, I know a shooter puts another camera downrange to actually track each shot, which shot he takes. I didn't do that. But I think that's smart as well to figure out. Or, you can, after doing the KRAFT drill, you can just focus, hey, maybe I think it's the standing position that's really messing me up. Just work on the standing position. You know what I mean?
Yep.
To figure out how big of a group. And that's where you do your consistency check drills that we talk about, right? Which is, starting with the high ready or the low ready, and then just building the shooting position with your support bag. But no, Chris, if you're listening to this, I know you are. Great drill, and I'm looking forward to seeing your all the results that people send in, and check that out on Sniper Side. I think Frank and Chris started a thread on it. That's where everyone is submitting, and it can be anonymous. There's no ego there, but I definitely think if you guys are trying to come up with very limited round counts, because again ammo is short. That's definitely a great drill to throw in to your training regimen at the beginning as a fundamental drill to get everything warmed up before you start the day's task when you head to the range. So, So yeah, that's the KRAFT challenge, and that was on my list today.
Well, and that's perfect, man. It took us right up to an hour. So
Cool.
I'm glad to be back in the saddle with the podcasts. Guys, really, we apologize. There's a lot of not necessarily time management, but trying to figure out how to make everything happen that we need to make happen. And so we're really focused on developing content for you guys, and that's where our efforts have been directed. So excited to get back on this in a weekly manner. And the fact of the matter is that we've got some really rad stuff coming for you guys. So one of the things that you guys can be prepared for is with the subscription service, every class is going to be a webinar as well. So for those of you guys who want to consume the content, you can drop into the class via the webinar, and you can pay a drop-in fee, and you can come listen to the class. And if you want evergreen content, then the subscription service is the way to go, because all of the content that we curate in the subscription service is just going to live in the community platform that we're building. So, I mean, if you come to the subscription service, 2 years after we kick it off, you hit the go button, you're going to have access to 2 years worth of content. And so, that's really what we're trying to build. We're just trying to build a community for you guys and a place for you to go to get really good, solid vetted information. And dude, we got so many videos coming up. I looked at it, like I got to do a video for Stone Glacier on the R3 bags. I would love to I'm going to do a video on cold weather layering stuff. I really want to do that. I have another one for footwear, flying with guns. Dude, the list goes on and on and on and on. And now that we get 3 weeks of our life back in January, not having to go to SHOT Show. Now we're just going to capture content. So you guys benefit from that.
Yeah, check out our YouTube. I know our YouTube hasn't really been active, but that's one of my goals this year, is to really spruce up our YouTube. And that's coming, like Caylen says, we got a whole laundry list of videos that we want to do. I know I want to do what's in my bag for both, like 3 different bags, right? As a competitive shooter, as a hunter, and then also as an instructor, because I've been getting that question a lot. Hey, what do you bring into these as an instructor? What are you flying with and stuff like that? So those are three separate videos in itself. I'm trying to do a gear list video for everyone that signs up for our in-person classes. Hey, this is what to expect. And then, just other, small videos, gear reviews. It's already out, so I can talk about it. But the new Collis, everyone knows I'm a big Collis guy. The new Collis 525 DLR is out, which is pretty much a upgrade to the 525. Apparently a bigger field of view. And instead of fitting 14 mils on one turret rotation, they only did 10, which I think is smart. So now you've got more definitive clicks, and you can read the numbers a lot better, which I think is going to be awesome for that. The only thing, that I'm worried about with the increase of field of view is now a tighter eye box, but I'm excited to get that in my hands to see what the difference between the 525 and the DLR is. Oh, and the ELRs too that came out.
The ELRs,
yeah, with range finding. I think, especially those that are planning on getting into the NRL Hunter series, I think that's going to be a ticket. But even the regular ELRs, I had a set of those, and those are great. Obviously, the downside is that it can give you ballistics, but I mean, I'm always carrying a dope card with me, but it's nice to have that immediate feedback right there instead of having to then look in your arm.
Dude, I've been running the GeoVids I've had my GeoVids since like 2013, and having that G7 calculator in there is money. It's just badass. You can, a button and there's your dope, and it's super quick. And the only thing you gotta do is worry about a wind call, and it really does make a difference.
Dude, imagine if you had that in combat.
Oh, there's a lot of things. That's something that we should probably talk about, right? That's probably something we should talk about. I would love to have, that's a great opportunity to have Larry on the podcast.
Yeah.
Bring Larry on the podcast. We could talk about that, because he and I share the cool thing is that we went to combat together in Fallujah in 2004, but then he continued, as a recon Marine, going on deployments and trips as not only a recon Marine, but a sniper also. So he's been able to witness the progression, and that'll be a good conversation to talk about.
Let's real quick. Let's wrap up with some housekeeping of courses real quick.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So guys, real quick, danger close, meaning within our 5 meter line. We've got 2 courses right now. They are a PR 101 and PR 201, our first in-person classes of the year, and that's in Volusia County, Florida. The date is Orlando, Florida.
Florida. It's smack dab in between Orlando and Daytona. Super cool venue. They did a bunch of work to it. Phil, I'm sorry I'm stepping on you.
Yeah, you're good. So PR 101 is 6 through 9, and that is. Do you remember the price on that?
That 101 is, I think $800. We had a price increase this year, guys. So, the first price increase is our
starting
PR 101
in California.
Paula.
Yep.
Yeah. And the reason that's screwy, just bear with us here. The reason that's screwy is we were going to do a law enforcement course, and that ended up not coming to fruition. So we decided we have a huge wait list for PR 201 in California. You guys sold out like fast, and there's probably 6 or 7 people on the wait list. But then we just decided to throw in a 101, add on another day. So that 101 class has our new pricing structure on it. But the course down in Florida is the tuition for the course is, I think, $800.
It's $1,000 for 101. That's including range fee. Yeah, so it's $1,000. Yeah.
Yep. And then we got a 201 after that guy. We got a day break in between. I'm not gonna lie. The only reason that I put a day in between classes so I go skydiving. The drop zone's like 10 minutes down the road, so I'm gonna be falling out of airplanes all day off.
And then our 201 is in the next 3 days, and that's still available. So the 6 to 9 for PR 101 in Volusia County, and then brain fart, and then 11 through 13. We have the 10th off. 11 through 13 is PR 201. Okay, so we got availability there. You need 400 rounds for a PR 101, and you need 250 rounds in your basic shooter kit. You'll get all this gear list if you sign up. And if you are in Southern California, San Diego County, Paula, a lot of times people don't know that there's a rifle range there. We've got a PR 101 there. We're hosting 20 students because there's going to be 3 instructors, myself, Caylen, plus 1. There's availability there. I think that's $1,300, which includes the range fees already. And then PR 201 is already full in Cali. And those dates are PR 101 is March 15th through the 18th.
15 through 18th. Yep.
And then PR 201 is 23, 24, 25. Yep. And so those are our danger close items. And then on the next podcast, we'll talk April and whatnot. But all right, man.
Get signed up, man. Come out and train with us. Dude, seriously, though, Volusia County, we haven't shot there in a while. I used to shoot there with Magpul annually. February is a great time of year to come down there and train. That range went through a bunch of kind of changing hands and ownership, and they've made some improvements to it. And I believe that they have a 1,400-yard berm out there. But that's a great venue, and I'm looking forward to coming back and hanging out in DeLand, Florida. So, yeah, right on. So I got a couple matches this weekend. I'm shooting Sun Valley on Saturday. So if you guys are hanging out, or not Sun Valley, Sun Targets. If you guys are coming out, come up, say, hey, what's up? I want to meet you. I want to say what's going on. And I'm also shooting Lead Farm on the next day, on Sunday. Yeah. Cool. So I got to load some ammo.
Yes, you do. I've got a lot of projects to keep up with this weekend, so that's what I'll be doing in Fire Foreman. So have fun this weekend.
Yeah.
And hey guys, if you listen to this, thanks for tuning in. And you know the drill. Keep your face on the gun.